You ever just log into Sea of Thieves expecting to have a chill time when suddenly you find yourself in a heist for the most sought after item in the entire game? And that twice over in the same session? Needless to say that my Season 9 launch day ended up being very eventful. This might be the first time that I saw literally the entire server fighting over a single piece of loot. Done are the days of heisting for chests of legends, because now it's all about the chest of fortune. What makes this item so coveted besides being very shiny and very new? Come on, do you really need me to spell it out? It's all about cosmetics. The Chest of Fortune is the only way for you to get your hands on the Fates of Fortune ship set. Not only does it look absolutely banging, but it is also a true show of your perseverance, because you're gonna have to sell 30 Chests of Fortune for the privilege of purchasing this set. And the only way you can find them? Within the randomly spawning world event known as the Fort of Fortune. Very fitting if you ask me. Now, despite me knowing all these things going into my session, I was under no illusion that such a highly contested item would likely never find its way onto my lap. My goal was, originally anyway, to try out some of the new Pirate Legend exclusive voyages that were added to the game as part of this update, though I was about to learn that these voyages are a lot more expensive than I anticipated. How far can 118 doubloons get me? Ashen chest stash. Oh wait, I can buy them for gold, right? No, they do cost doubloons! Oh, I'm angry. I think it is fair to say that by now, gold pieces have become the most useless currency in the game. Inflation aside, the 8 million coins in my pocket were not gonna get me far in this transaction, so I was trying to find a way to experience some of the other new content that has recently been added. One of which had actually just presented itself to me, and that completely free of charge. This new pancake in disguise signifies the presence of a phantom fleet, so after picking up some supplies, I decided to set sail towards it and try my luck. Though I was anything but, because as soon as I left the outpost, I immediately had a skeleton ship spawn on me. You guys might want to get used to this happening a lot more, because now things like megalodons and other random spawns have been cranked up, though that wasn't the only problem I had to face. That fleet is way further out than I anticipated. I think the Reaper might be doing the fleet. It's a brigantine? I'm turning around. They can have this, they can clear it, I'll be back later. Yeah, I was not gonna mess with a Reaper brigantine if I can help it. Thankfully, them being at the Phantom Fleet meant that they would likely be too busy to go for the Reaper's bounty that I was about to load onto my vessel. Here's another fun change they made this season. The beacon in the sky that shows you the location of a Reaper's bounty or Reaper's chest no longer disappears when picking up the item. You can imagine what that looks like when somebody's stacking for the downed loot, which a second Reaper on my server was in the process of doing as I was delivering this one singular piece of loot. It wasn't a massive victory, but for how contested my server was, I'd be taking dubs wherever I can find them. For the next hour and change, I was just kind of hanging out, to be honest. I didn't have the confidence to take on a world event on my own when there were so many Reaper emissaries running around. I made friends with a fellow solo slooper who helped me pick up another Reaper's chest that was located at the other end of the map. We also got to meet the sloop that was stacking FOTD, though they were definitely not too keen to talk to us any other way than by means of their cannons. And during this whole ordeal, a Fort of Fortune had spawned. Now, I was not lying when I said that I had no intention to join the fight for one of the coveted chests hidden within those vaults, but it was almost like Rare was guiding me towards it. The Reaper brigantine had sunk to the fleet, the Reaper sloop had logged off after they were done with their FOTD stack, and my solo sloop buddy was busy fending off a megalodon. It was just me and whoever was at the fort, which, yeah, there was a chance I could not pass up on. Even luckier was the fact that I was facing another sloop. I mean, sure, they could have twice as many players in their crew, but at least their ship was not any bigger than mine. Meaning, it was time to strike. They're either super confident or they don't know what they're doing if they have their ship parked right there. Okay. How am I sinking already? What? Stop black screening me. Oh boy. They must have the... Yeah, they already have it. Damn it. Hello? Please die. Okay. I'm not usually one to let gameplay speak for itself, mostly because my gameplay is not very good, but I hope the intensity of this encounter was coming through to you. Either way, the battle was not over yet. I scavenged the supply barrels of my sunken vessel for some last-minute gamer snacks, whilst watching the two of them scout the island. The voices were screaming at me to bury the chest and come back on my ship, but that was exactly why I could not do it. If this is something they wanted me to do, chances are this is also something my enemies would expect. And if that is the case, they would never expect me to swim for like 10 uninterrupted minutes towards the next island whilst holding the chest of fortune. I didn't know it at the time, but I was supremely lucky to be facing off against these guys instead of the usual assortment of PvP sweatlords that usually sink me with their monitors turned off. But don't forget, this is only the first out of 2 heists in the session, and trust me when I say that this was merely a warm-up for what was about to happen. For now, I happily took the opportunity to row my way towards New Golden Sands in order to secure the goods. Or the good, I guess. Ah, buy this! Hey, let's go! It's been a long time since I was that excited over selling a single piece of loot, but hey, stealing the brand new chest the day it was released? Pretty big to me. Alas, even bigger heists were on the horizon, so let's find out if I can use this momentum to my advantage, or if the second go-around will prove a little more difficult. After having made some enemies, it was time to make some friends as well. I spotted a sloop currently completing a skull fort and figured that I might be able to leech off some of their loot. Their Alliance Alpha flag made me feel like that was a rather likely outcome, but the way it happened definitely caught me by surprise.
Hey, what's up? I'm not trying to fight you, don't worry. The story guy. Hello. Hey, how do you know? What?
It was apparent that news of my latest achievements had spread, and that fast. This fella was keenly aware of my name and, thankfully for me, not immediately hostile. I decided to lend him a hand in the completion of this fortress, which granted, he definitely didn't need in light of the fact that world events now scale according to your crew size. To call this encounter a pushover is an understatement, but my assistance had not gone unnoticed, and my new friend over here allowed me to take home every single item that could be sold for doubloons rather than gold. Cashing in some doubloons was great, though it was clear that a lot more treasure would be necessary for me to experience all of these new voyages. And speaking of new things, you know what else they cranked the dial on? Fog. I don't know who over at Rare HQ made the executive decision that more fog is what players definitely wanted. But needless to say that I have some opinions for that person. For now, I finally got to try out the Phantom Fleet World event, which, yep, it's definitely just like the Flameheart World event, except without the annoying bobblehead in the sky. Not that I was gonna have some peace and quiet here, because several other ships decided to come my way. While one of them was the sloop that I had just cleared the Skelly Fort with, the second one was definitely giving me some mixed messaging. Because on the one hand, they were running a Reaper emissary flag, but on the other hand... Dang, can't believe I have finally become some kind of niche micro-celebrity. As much as keeping it on the down low is more my style, I was appreciative of not immediately getting sunk. The other sloop decided to add them to our alliance, but knowing what happened last time I was in a similar situation, I had no intention to stick around. Though as fate would have it, every single one of us was about to head for the same destination because another Fort of Fortune had just spawned. Now listen, I'm just gonna come out and say this, no alliance will survive a Fort of Fortune in Season 9. Because guess what? It does not matter how many ships you bring because there's only one chest of fortune in that vault. And since only the crew that actually sells it gets to make progress towards the commendation that unlocks the new cosmetic, you can be dang sure that betrayal will become an everyday occurrence. Not that this was the only thing we had to worry about because the rest of the server was currently headed in our direction. Even though I was absolutely expecting our alliance to fall apart, I didn't just want to leave them for the wolves, so I decided to shoot on over in order to warn them of the approaching attacker. Just that I forgot I was still double gunning. Without a sword dash expediting my way towards a mermaid, I had lost valuable seconds that allowed said attacker to make their move. When I was predictably getting outplayed, I was trying to buy myself an advantage under false pretense of a parlay, but even winning that second or two was not enough because that person was absolutely wiping the floor with me. I could be sitting here and complain about the horrendous input lag that I was getting as the server crumbled under the stress of so many pirates residing within a small space on this map, but it's not like that stopped this other person from killing me, and eventually I had run out of options. You know what? If that means I don't sink, yes. I was doomed if I do and doomed if I don't. Not that I was feeling good about betraying my alliance, especially under these circumstances, but if I wanted to have a shot at this chest of fortune, staying alive needed to be my priority. Also, I hope you're enjoying my capture because our Japanese text-to-speech friend over here will be playing a big role for the remainder of this episode, and their name is Akai. Yoroshiku onegai shimasu and all the rest of it, but for now, it was time for me to point my cannons towards my allies. What do I do? Do I keep firing? I mean, he's not here to hold me hostage anymore, but there's his brigantine, so like, oh god. I'm more scared of the brigantine at this point. I'm sorry, they're holding me hostage. They said I'm gonna sink if I don't do it. I was entirely certain that there would be repercussions for me overstepping this boundary, but you know what they say, all is fair in war and clickbait. After having definitively proven to my captors that I was on their side, I decided to change focus towards what we were actually here for. It was safe to assume that everyone was my enemy in this battle for the Chest of Fortune, so I tried to be as cautious as humanly possible in the way I approach this. What definitely was not helping was the, in areas of intense action, levels of input delay and lag I experienced whilst attempting to clear the fort, exacerbated by Rare sending boatloads of gunpowder keg skeletons towards me. For some reason, the kegs didn't always blow up in a chain reaction when the skeletons were holding them, making this doubly dangerous. And as you can imagine, that eventually led to me biting the big one. Sadly, that was not my biggest problem. No, please, no! The black screen! You've got to be shitting me, bro.
I'm sorry they held me hostage, dude.
Yeah, for sure.
They actually spawn camped me, I'm not even kidding. It's either I sink to you or sink to them, there's no way. It became very apparent that I needed to find a way to play on every side of the field. My ex-Alliance members seemed sympathetic to the fact that my hand was forced. However, that does not mean that they would necessarily forgive me. I was officially one-lifing this. If either a player or a skeleton gets the better of me, I could kiss my chances of getting the chest goodbye. Luckily, Akai eventually found me, expressing a great level of shock over the fact that I was still alive. Whether they wanted to use me as an asset or whether they also had a genuine level of sympathy for my situation did not matter. As long as I can convince these people not to kill me, I was still in the running for this heist. Not that I was the only one, because more and more ships continued to join the battle, with me not having previously met some of the contestants. Any sort of wild card could prove to become an issue, but for the time being, all I could feasibly do was continue clearing waves of skeletons. Though it wasn't for long until one of these new players set foot on the island to take me out. I was running for my life, pleading and hoping he would let me go, and thankfully, he was willing to hear me out. You know what they say about the enemy of your enemy being your friend? Knowing that I was not part of Akai's brigantine crew was enough for this guy to let me off the hook, as he explained to me how difficult of a fight this was becoming for his sloop. Eventually, Akai joined the conversation, somehow having become part of my alliance, which you can tell because now their name was reading in pink instead of white. This was definitely an interesting situation. Even though all three of us were in contest for the same item, there was a mutual agreement to treat the fort itself as a sort of neutral ground until the vault was opened. The only thing keeping me alive was diplomatic immunity, and I think all of us know how fragile of a shield that is in the world of Sea of Thieves. Everyone was plotting and scheming against each other, much like a C-tier Warcraft villain. We were all under the impression that we could use the other parties to our advantage. You know why? Because by now, every single ship on the server had joined the battle. Okay, except for mine, but at least I was still there. Each and every one of us was aware of the fact that muscle alone would not decide the victor, and as such, we continued to spin our webs.
Little Laka, you go to the bridge. Yeah. Do you want to ally against these two sloops? Do you want to ally against these two sloops then?
The scheming was definitely in full effect. It was impossible to tell who's friend or foe, with everybody rocking a dagger behind their backs. Survival was the name of the game, and as such, I kept ears and eyes wide open to see the inevitable betrayal coming. Akai was letting me in on their own plan, which was hiding the key upon completion to buy ourselves some time to get rid of the other crews, which I was not planning to follow along with, but definitely said I would to keep Akai on my good side. Meanwhile, the Fort of Fortune was being engulfed in the Fog of Fortune as the final boss arrived. I will continue to complain about the fog until you remove it from the game, Rare. Get on it. Tensions were high, not only because the boss is marking the finale of this world event, but also because more and more players began making their moves. I had every intention to break the peace treaty myself, but was beaten to the punch by a new sloop arriving at the fort. Wasn't it for Akai systematically dismantling these guys? I'm certain this would have been the end of my adventure. Thankfully, we were in agreement about the treaty being null and void, beginning to focus our attention on clearing out the fort of every breathing and non-breathing individual that did not have a pink name tag. Unfortunately, being so close to the finish line meant that players were not the only ones stepping on the gas. The boss was raining fire and brimstone from the sky, which is dangerous for players and ships alike, but doubly so for myself, who does not have a ship to respawn at. Having to juggle fighting other players, avoiding environmental threats, and still progressing the actual boss encounter was one heck of an experience. And sometimes it took a little bit of creativity for me to make sure I don't lose my neck. But then, something unexpected happened.
Yo, Cliff. Wait, are you the YouTuber? Yo, Cliff.
I am. Please don't kill me. I'm scared. Now I know what you are thinking. Stumbling upon more individuals who have heard my name, surely that means this is a slam dunk, right? All I have to do is convince them to let me have the chest under the pretense of it being for one of my stories. Unfortunately, it was not that simple, my friends. While these fellas did claim they had no issue giving me the most sought after piece of loot in the game, after the most recent stream sniping incident, I was definitely still on my guard. Not to mention that after all the things I went through to get to where I was then, taking a free W like that just did not feel right. What kind of story would this be if I just ended it with, yeah, and then I used my status as a deranged content creator to cash in my loot? That is not how I roll, and that also was not what Akai had in mind. Because while these guys were busy organizing a vessel for us to take to an outpost, Akai made the executive decision to run away with a chest. It was at that moment that the true nature of my character was tested. Do I shoot Akai in the back, take a free ride to New Golden Sands and claim the chest of fortune? Or do I choose to continue doing what I have been doing this entire time and fight for it? There was only one answer. The two of us were ride or die homies now, and I was willing to follow Akai to the ends of the world. We decided to swim towards a phantom fleet in hopes of the ghostly vessels protecting us from incoming ships, and as much as I was fire and flame for the idea of securing this chest of fortune for Akai, I started to realize that maybe I might actually just be a liability. If worse comes to worse and I die, make sure you get the cell, dude. Make sure you get it. Listen, man, we've been through a lot. I hate to say it, but there's a chance that me being with you is a detriment to you, and if that is the case, I need to die. Promise me one thing, Akai, whatever happens, you need to get the sword. Promise me. Alright, scared it. I was keenly aware of stream sniping becoming my downfall again. Fact of the matter was that I expected competing crews to try and catch us at whatever outpost we target, knowing they can get there faster than us. This was one of those situations that, even with us being in a winning position, the fight was not won until the chest was sold. And that wasn't a guarantee, even if we can get to an outpost. I thought us victorious the moment I spotted a rowboat, but unfortunately, there were more surprises waiting for us, because this was not just any rowboat, it was a cannon rowie. No,
never mind. Don't take it.
Bro, they shoot at this? That they did. I found out the hard way that NPCs very much consider cannon robots threatening enough to fire at them, though the surprises were not over because my biggest fear became reality with the crew we blindsided at the fort coming back for revenge. I'm sorry, guys.
No!
I'm so sorry, guys. I'm so sorry.
XD time to pick.
Yup, it had become more than apparent that every step of this journey was going to be filled with peril. Taking a cannon rowboat right into a phantom fleet was definitely bad news, but knowing that even getting to the outpost did not mean victory was very frustrating. All we had were the supplies on our person and in the rowboat to take to this final battle at New Golden Sands, and that's assuming the dang phantoms don't get us. And it was in these final minutes of peace and quiet that I reflected upon the journey that got us here. In a way, I was more invested in securing this chest for Akai than I was worried about getting the first one for myself, and with that steel determination in my heart, I was ready to give it my all. This is it, man. Just take it. There's a ladder. Just take it.
BD.
The other side. Left side, left side. Wait. Akai? Akai? Akai! I really wasn't kidding when I said that getting to the outpost did not mean the fight was won. Whilst there was no stream sniping ambush waiting for us, Akai had gotten black screened at what was quite possibly the worst timing imaginable. I suppose the only thing that was left to do for me was to go and begrudgingly sell the chest of fortune. I mean, what choice did I have? Even if I waited for them, there was no telling if they'd come back. Just kidding, you nerds. Of course I freaking believed in Akai. I believed in the Akai that believed in me. Because after days of waiting for the return, I was greeted with a familiar face. That has to be Akai. He's back.
I've waited for you.
Welcome back. I've waited days.
We don't talk, avoid that.
And that we didn't, because I was still afraid of stream sniping. I had decided to cover my screen whilst hiding the chest so that nobody but me knew where it was. And upon the return, I could deliver this coveted piece of loot. And with that cell, we can close the book on one of the more eventful seasonal launches in my book of tales. But if it's more adventures you're looking for, what about you check out my episode all about Betrayal? If this ending was a little too wholesome for you, I'm sure that one is going to give you what you need, and you can find it via the card on screen right now. But until then, thank you everybody so much for watching. I hope you guys have a day filled with the riches on the sea. And until next time, hey.